everybody. Let me share my screen here. It actually retained it. Very nice. All right, we're going to be talking about managing photos between Android and Windows. We're going to cover both. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be talking about. I'm going to, obviously I'm introducing it right now. We're going to go through photos. And when I say photos, when it comes to Android, it is Google Photos. We're going to talk about transferring photos to a Windows computer via, in my case, a USB cable, and I'll go through the connectivity required for that. Going to talk about actually managing those photos on Windows. And I'm doing the least common denominator here. There's a pre-installed app for Windows, as well as I'm going to even use File Manager, the very lowest piece of software that you can use on a Windows computer for managing files in general. We'll talk about keeping photos safe and accessible, and throughout this, I will be adding some hands-on or some live demos. There's static imaging within the slides, and everybody will have access to the slides after the presentation is complete. And I have QA at the end here, and I will, if we get too wrapped up in questions, we'll try to move on, and then we'll cover follow-up questions at the end. But I will take questions in the middle of the presentation. All right, we actually already covered that. So to start off with, I'm going to kind of cover how you navigate the Photos app within Android. And then we'll move into organizing them. Organizing your photos, which is very personal thing. You need to create an organization scheme that works for you. And then I'll talk about sharing photos via messaging or multiple other apps, and uploading to cloud services like Google Drive or OneDrive. All right, so I thought it important to understand where in the heck do your photos go when you click the picture button on a phone. And when I talk about that, I'm going to move my phone into view here. Literally, of course, my phone is facing down right now. But when you take a photo here, where does that photo actually wind up by going within the context of your phone? And on Android phones and many other phones, I was just talking to Bobski about this, it goes into something called this DSIM directory. And directories are just a way of organizing files and material within a phone, within a computer, etc. What I'm using here for an application is something called Google Files, and allows you, this is actually the base view of what would be my phone in this case. And these will be subtly different on different Androids, but it's going to be very close to what you're seeing here. So here, like I mentioned, there's this DSIM directory. By the way, can you see my cursor, Daryl?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I've actually intentionally kept for this presentation, the number of photos that I have here available, fairly limited, but here you can see all the photos that are currently available. And this would be also available through Gallery on your phone. So there's a number of ways of managing photos. There's a default Gallery app that usually comes with every Android phone. In my case, I have a Samsung phone. I will give you a look-see here at that. So you can see, actually, this is the Google Photos icon here, the nice little rainbow windmill. And here's Gallery, and you can see here, it's displaying, I hope you can see anyway, you can actually see the photos that are in internal storage on the filer here, or files from Google. And I do recommend installing that app. It's handy to be able to get at what actually exists on your phone. And this is the view from the Samsung Gallery app. So yet another way of managing these. And with this, you can sort, you can actually, and I'll get to this later, create a slideshow. You can add your pictures to your home screen if you so desire. And there's a number of other pieces that we'll kind of touch upon a little later here.
Tim,
Yes.
Daryl here. I have a Google Pixel, and for whatever reason, by default at least, they don't show a gallery app. It just is the Google Photos app.
Well, and that makes sense in the Pixel case because that is the Google app for managing photos. So yes, Pixel would be an exception actually in that case, since that is their Photos app. Very good point. So any of you that have Pixels, the default Photos app will be Google Photos. Thank you. All right. And DSIM just is it's an old thing that's been around for at least 25, maybe 30 years. If you ever had an old digital camera and you connected it to a PC, you would see a DSIM directory on it with your photos in it. And it stands for Digital Center Infrastructure Management. Isn't that intuitive? Not. Anyway. So this is navigation on your Android there, as far as actually getting to your photos. Now, actually, let me bring this back and show you what it looks like with Google Photos. All right. And I'm in albums right now, but I'm going to take you to photos themselves. There we go. And I've taken additional pictures since I actually created the slides. So there's additional pictures. And my current viewing in Google Photos is by a day-by-day perspective. There's other means with which you can organize your photos. And you can look at it on a month basis. So it gives you all of April, all of March in that case. Comfortable. I'm not sure exactly. It provides you a better view of the images, I suppose, in that case. I tend to like to just have it but on a daily basis. And I move things back and forth out of Google Photos all the time. It is a backup for me, but I also have alternate backup mechanisms where I save my photos onto a storage NAS in my home. probably not the general use case for most people. But Google Photos is a very good way of um, of backing up your photos. I will also talk about OneDrive a little later, classic Microsoft cloud storage setup, and you can have that set up to, just as Google Photos, to back up your photos automatically or back up about anything automatically. In the case of Google Photos, uh, the way I have Google Photos set up right now, and it's the default method. When you start Google Photos, it, in my case, Daryl was mentioning it's his default. In my case, Google Photos then syncs or takes all my photos out of my phone and adds it to Google Photos automatically. So all I have to do is start up Google Photos and it syncs the photos to my Google Photos storage, which is a cloud storage, by the way. All right, onward and upwards. So photo navigation, Windows is a major component of this presentation. And so where do the photos go? Well, using Windows Explorer, I have shown you yet another mechanism for seeing where your photos are when you're actually attached to your phone. And here I'll bring this in, and here again, these are the same photos that I showed you. So I'm showing you all kinds of different ways. I hope it's not confusing, but there's many different ways of looking at the same set of photos on your phone within Windows. These have not been transferred to Windows yet, although I will show you that in a minute. There, you just have all kinds of different options. What I normally recommend is that you have a backup mechanism, either Google Photos or a OneDrive. You could even use Google Drive or any other type of cloud storage to get them replicated or duplicated or backed up onto some other media. All right. All right. Now with photos, when I say where do photos go when you're using Google Photos, I've made reference to the fact that they are in the cloud, and I'm showing an actual Google Photos browser interface to Photos here. And honestly, the phone is very handy for localized work with your photos, but I find using the web application, and in some cases there's actually a Google Photos app that you can install as well. That's much easier to actually manage your photos in general than on your phone. Now I realize that some of you just do all the work on your phone, and it's very usable. But if you want to do things in terms of actually modification of photos, like rotating them, changing the lighting, etc., it's a lot easier to do that with the web app, which I'm showing here. Sorry, that was my phone actually talking back. It had recorded some of the information here. All right. So first of all, are there any questions regarding where your photos wind up by going on your phone, where you can put them, how you can back them up? I'm not watching chat, Daryl, so.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
I'm kind of keeping an eye on it too, Tim.
Thank you. No, they're all right. Very good. All right. So this is something that I've noted many of our clients want to understand, and that is sharing photos once they've taken them with via either your text application. Um, uh, in your case, Daryl, it would be messages, would be the default. On my Samsung, it was the whatever Samsung's default messaging application. I use Messages because it has a nice mechanism for actually sending texts when I'm sitting on my computer, as opposed to using my phone to send texts. But the key here for sharing messages within, well, here I'm going to start with Google Photos here. Sharing messages is that special 3 dot and 2 lines sharing icon that you'll note at the bottom of the window on the phone here. And in this particular case, I chose to share it via text, or in this case, it would be MMS, but we'll just text is simple enough. And I've selected myself as the recipient of this image. And then, of course, you hit send. But what you will also note is there on the middle diagram, there's 5 apps at the bottom, of which Messages was one. But another way people like to share photos is via their Mail app. And any app you have installed that can interact with images that you want to send are going to be in this list. And they'll be the most popular or the most used apps will be shown. And in fact, let me just show this, and I'm going to do a share here. And this is, of course, the diagram that or the image that I showed you, the screenshot. But you can see I have a number of default things, but then more comes up. And in this case, you have whatever you might be reasonable for you to share it via your own email app. In my case, I have Yahoo Mail here as well. I could share it via Teams in the event that you're using that to interact with other folks with, similar to Zoom. So there's a lot of options in terms of sharing it. And in each case, let me actually come back here, and I'm going to so I'll choose my son here, and you just it's proper to create a subject so your recipient knows kind of what the email is about. And then you can add text to the email, but you can also see here that the image has been added to the email for forwarding on, for sharing that photo. And you can select multiple photos if you so desire. All right. I mentioned backing up to OneDrive, and so there's a number of mechanisms you can use, approaches you can use to actually upload photos to OneDrive. You can use it, this would be kind of painful, but you could use a share like I've already shown here, and add it to OneDrive one at a time. Or within window, you could open up OneDrive on your phone. Yeah, figures. Sorry. All right. Notice there you could set up automatic backup for your camera to OneDrive, which I have not done, but that is another mechanism for backing up your photos. And you can now do a search for photos and actually back them up. And you can create albums of photos on OneDrive, not to be confused with albums on your local gallery or Google Photos. So it's, like I said, it's another approach to actually saving photos automatically to a cloud service. Now, there's also, since I have my phone connected here, you'll note here I have OneDrive attached on my Windows PC, and many of you that have had Windows laptops or Windows PCs that I've looked at are also subscribing to Microsoft's OneDrive, at least the minimal amount of storage. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open this up in a new window. We'll have two of them. Like this. Then I'm going to come over to here. Now this gets confusing sometimes. This is pictures on OneDrive in this particular case because I've selected OneDrive. Here I have pictures, and this is on my local PC. I've noted that many of you are wondering, where in the world are my pictures and why are they duplicated all over the place? Number one, the folders all look the same, except when you look at the details of where it's coming from. In this case, OneDrive, in this case, the local machine. And as far as the quick start or the quick access is what this is called in Windows, the best way to determine where you're at is to select the directory and look here. This is the default on system pictures. And when you look here, you have OneDrive.
Hey, Tim,
Yes.
can you rename those folders? Like the one on my local hard drive that's not in OneDrive, can I name it like Pictures Local or something like that?
You
Or
know, I believe you can. Let me see here.
because it is confusing.
It really is confusing, and no, you cannot.
Those are
I think I've gone through this before.
They're system folders, so I don't think
Yeah.
you'd want to do that.
Yeah, so you can't dink with the name of them, huh?
And so what I do, and this is actually, it was a great question because I'm using it for this presentation, but for my purposes, I actually create a separate directory that makes more sense to me and doesn't get confusing. And this is a part of organizing photos that I think is important, is that you come up, just as in our homes we have file cabinets or whatever to track our important documents and the like. I think it's important to organize your files in a similar mechanism that makes sense for you and that you keep organized over time. The tendency I've noted with many is they let their files and everything they have, sometimes putting all their files on their desktop, which makes it very difficult once it gets fairly large. I've seen complete desktops covered by folders and by files and the like, and that just becomes difficult to manage. And many of the folks that I've talked to, clients, have said they're just overwhelmed by how many files they have and where to find them, especially when you're using a cloud service like OneDrive, or in one of our clients' cases, something called Sync. And she had 4 versions of a file, one of which was shared on Sync, but the other ones she would do work in, and she wouldn't see the contents changed on Sync, and nor would the people that she was collaborating with see the files that were on Sync. So it was very, and we have another session coming up to help her start to organize them. She said, I nearly have infinite files. Well, nobody has infinite files, not even me. But it does become overwhelming when, in her case, she had somewhere around 75, 80 directories, and many of them had duplicated content in them, and she was just beside herself, figuring out where things were, where they would go. Anyway, back to another mechanism for managing photos in OneDrive. And I've already moved some photos over there. Is you can literally just transport your photos to OneDrive. And of course, this is going to tell me I have a same file name here. So in that case, you would you'd know that you're putting a duplicate picture on your OneDrive backup. But so that's another way, and this is good for files in general. Yes, I'm showing photos right now, but using File Manager to actually manage your photos and your pictures works out fairly well. And it's the least common denominator. You're always going to find File Manager on every Windows system. There is also, and I wasn't going to go into this in a lot of depth, but one of my collaborators here, one of the team, mentioned the new up and coming Windows Photos application, which I'm showing you right now, and it's giving you a very similar view to my photos. All these images, because there's additional photos here because this is also showing my the images that I took copying my desktop, copying different apps and the like. So it has screen captures in here as well. And this will also help you manage OneDrive for photos and like. So I'm giving you exposure. I'm trying not to confuse the issue, but there are a lot of different ways of managing your photos within a Windows system and within an Android system. Um, but suffice to say, you don't have to go and purchase a new application unless you're really looking for something advanced as when it comes to managing your photos within Android and Windows. So let me move that out. And we'll get rid of these for a moment. All right, any questions about OneDrive before I move on? All right. I kind of skipped ahead here. So Google Drive is another cloud offering and one I use quite frequently. And in fact, we were discussing earlier a mechanism where you could download your Google Photos to one of our clients to a micro SD card that was on her phone, and she wanted all her photos there from Google Drive. Where one intermediate step that we had to take was to use Google Drive, but in the past I've used Google Drive for my photos, and this is long past because I use Google Photos principally to manage my photos off my phone now. But Google Drive is also an analog to OneDrive. It's a cloud storage service offered by Google, and it's a mechanism where you can save any of your files out there. They give you, I think it's 10 gig by default, and then like most of the cloud services, whether it be OneDrive or Apple's iCloud or Google Drive, they'll ask you for additional money if you need to expand your storage. But these are extremely valuable for backup of anything on your computer. Photos certainly, but even more so with your files in general. All right, so transferring files, or in this case photos, to a Windows computer, there's a couple of mechanisms here again, and we've kind of covered these already. Using a USB cable, which I'm going to go through first. The cloud storage is I've kind of given you a good look at how you can move things to and from cloud storage using any number of apps. Windows File Manager, using Google Photos, using OneDrive, etc. So probably won't hit on that in a whole lot more detail. But one of the ways that I've used with my cameras, going back probably almost 30 years now, is to use a USB cable. And so what I'm going to first go through is the standard of USB and what kind of connectivity you get from various cables. So those three blue circles are the classics that most of you will find useful when you're talking about connecting a PC. So USB Type A and USB 3.0 are the wider connectors. The difference being there is the protocol's been increased. The cables are higher quality for 3.0, and the transfer rates are much greater on a USB 3.0, but it looks pretty much the same. And then so that would be typically into your system, although you will find laptops now with USB Type C connectors on the laptops themselves. or even on desktops, but usually on desktops I find Type A and USB 3.0, the larger Type A connectors. Anyway, and into your phone for almost all Android phones. I say almost because I'm sure there's an exception out there, but all the most over the last 3 to 5 years I've seen use a Type-C connector, which is the small one and actually the best mechanically stable connector that USB has had. The Type A's and 3.0s are reasonable, but every once in a while you'll see, and I've seen people with phones that still use a micro B with connectors. So when it comes to connecting your phone to your computer, you need to look at what type of a connector, and it's tough to see, but you can also find it by looking at the list of details on your phone, and it will tell you what type of connector it has. If you, for instance, Google your phone type and look at the list of capabilities for the phone, it will tell you what connector it has on the bottom. But like I said, the blue circles are the most consistent, and you want a cable that's not just for charging. You will, when, for instance, you shop on Amazon or other sites, Staples, Best Buy, they'll have cables that they call charging cables. And the charging cables, you're not guaranteed that they will even have data wires in them. They will just be providing power. What you want for this purpose of transferring photos to a Windows computer is a data type cable, and they actually list that. Oh, it looked like we had another chat. We did not. All right. So anyway, you do want a data style cable, and one that's just long enough for your needs. Otherwise, you can step on them and yank them out, etc. So the length is just what you need in your day-to-day use of doing transfers and the like. I have some longer ones, but that's because of what I need to do in terms of reaching from the machine to the devices that I'm connecting to. Anyway, so that's a quick discussion on the cabling side of things. Let me know if you have any additional questions in chat or otherwise. All right, so using the USB cable, like we just covered, you have to make sure your PC and your phone are on, seems to make sense, and connected via the cable that you selected. Windows will ask you for permissions to be granted on your phone when you first connect it. You'll need to grant those permissions on your phone itself to let Windows, in this case, the low-level file management side of things, but let Windows access your phone. And once you do that, I've already shown you the Explorer view, which is again the lowest level view most people would use on Windows to see your files, and you will see the name of, in this case, Hobosan 25S Plus is my phone name. So whatever your phone name is, most people go with a default there, which is kind of cryptic. So, but it will show you a little phone icon as well. In this case, it's gotten better over time at detecting what a photo is, etc. And then so now you can see your phone from your Windows machine, and you select your images. And let me bring that up real quick. All right. All right, I'm going to come down to my album here. You can select one image and then transfer it by dragging and dropping to another location. Or you can, there's a hotkey, or you, well, before I get to the hotkey, I'm going to hold the control key down and I'm going to select multiple images. So that's one way in Windows to select multiple files. And in this case, it lets you select them one at a time, which is handy in some cases. Or you can select the first file and hold the shift key, and now you've selected all the files. Or there's a hotkey called Control A that will select all the files. And then you can either drag and drop them, or you can simply right click, or if you have a touch screen, double tap at the same time. That is 2 fingers. A light tap will bring up the what I call the right click menu on the Windows side. Very similar actually on the Mac for me. And then you can copy these or cut them. Cut is remove from, this would remove them from the phone. And then, and you need to be careful with that if you don't want to lose them. And then let's just, I'll do, let's do this one. I'll do a cut. I'm going to take pictures. And I'm going to create a new folder here for our class sake. So now I've selected the folder and I'm going to paste in that photo. And you'll notice that it moved the photo there. So that's a quick and easy way of moving files from your phone. This is, again, this is cabled to your local machine. And as I mentioned here, this will work just as easily with OneDrive. And so I selected a local directory here. But you can select OneDrive or Google Drive as well to drop your photos, to move your photos off your phone to another location. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways that you can actually move the photos on your phone and to other locations. All right. So now organizing photos on your computer. This is the part where it is somewhat, let me see here, let me move this. All right. When it comes to organizing, this has got to be something that makes sense to you and should be as uses the fewest number of steps to get to what you want to do. So in my case, let's shrink this down. So here's an example of organization that I use, where I've created a directory structure here And I have video captures where I collect all my videos, both work videos as well as personal videos. I also keep a directory structure. Be kind of nice if I show you a tree of this, but this is actually a protected data storage drive. This is a NAS basically that has a fair amount of storage, and it's it's what they refer to. This is a RAID 10, so it's protected. And I recommend, if you have important documents and the like on your PC, that either you use a OneDrive, which is guaranteed to be backed up, or you create a protected or resilient is a better term, a resilient storage mechanism for important documents. So in the event that you have a failure, you're protected against it, so that your documents are available, your photos are available in perpetuity. Alice, did you have a question? All right. All right. Now, editing photos, this is a part that I was going to be kind of careful about, because it deserves a class in and of it, all by itself, really. But I'd like to show you a couple of different things. Well, let's save the Windows app for the moment, and let me show you what you can do with Google Photos. And you can do similar things. I will show you it on the phone as well. All right. So there are a number of different things that you can enact on a photo. One of the ones that I use the most is to actually, sorry, in the wrong place.
Nobody has more oversight in store, on display, new discount every day. Raleigh, Charlotte, Greenville, Atlanta. This sale is in store only. Rug and Home.
There it is. I'm sorry. Is the rotate. So a lot of times what you'll wind up by doing is you may hold your phone on the side, and you'll get an image that's in what I would call landscape mode as opposed to portrait. In this case, what I've done is I've taken the portrait and turned it on its side, but you can rotate the photo through in this case, 45 degrees, or you can do it by varying degrees using this dial down here. And then you can save the photo. So let's do this, and we'll save. And there it is. It's saved in its edited form. And then there's a whole slew of additional enhancements that you can make to a photo. You can change the actual look. Well, actually, let me.
Hey, Tim,
Yes,
another question. So, should you make a duplicate of the photo before you start editing it, or is the original retained somewhere?
the original is not retained once you do save. So yes, I do recommend that if you're going to experiment, you're going to change the way a photo looks, that you go ahead and make a copy of it.
Cool, thanks.
Excellent question. Yeah, that's important. Now, and so here you can see there's various aspect ratios. Um, this would be a 16:9, which is a widescreen look. And you can return to original. Here you can actually change any number of, as it says, brightness, contrast, the white point, highlights, etc. And what this comes in really handy for is if you had bad lighting when you took the photo, you can actually alter each aspect here, or there are selections of different lighting schemes, image schemes that Photos brings, including changing it to various black and white views and so you can exercise the artistic side of your photo editing here. There are also very nifty high-end photo management software packages. The one that immediately comes to mind is Adobe Photoshop or a Corel Pictures or whatever, that allow you to do so much more. But those are not cheap. Those are on well, certainly all the Adobe products are specifically on a subscription basis. So you're paying monthly, or you can pay it by year, but you never truly are done paying as long as you're using the software. And there's significant functionality or use in just what Google Photos gives you. And so as an example here, showing you what you can actually do on the phone itself. Notice it picked up the change that I made to the photo per what Bob asked. There it is. You do want to make a backup in most cases. Wasn't too concerned on this in this case, but so you can unblur, and that's actually an option up here as well. Okay. Anyway, it's a playground for you and your images to actually achieve some nice effects, or to clean up an image that just for one reason or another wasn't the way you want it. You'll notice the menus by nature are going to look slightly different when you move onto the phone in this case, as compared to the web interface. And you have very similar capabilities with this is actually the Windows Photos app. Right? Which opens another window in this case, as opposed to what I showed you with Google Photos. And you can make alterations in a very similar, with the similar capabilities. Here, once you get to edit, and you'll notice the rotation degrees here. That looks very familiar. And you can crop the picture. That's these bold lines here, and that allows you to shrink the image to exactly what you want included if you had things that you wanted to exclude from the photo. And again, you do want to make a copy, per what Bob said, if you want to play around and retain the original. And I can show you there's these background brush tools that are available. There's generative erase, which is an AI assist using Copilot to clean up the picture. Well, like it says, remove distractions, etc. And then you can, I use this quite a bit, and you actually saw one where you can actually mark up your picture for presentation to somebody and draw their attention to a particular area of the picture, etc., for descriptions, etc. And then here's auto enhancements, which you saw in Google Photos as well. So these basic tools do an awful lot for you, as it turns out, without having to necessarily get something like I just mentioned with Photoshop or similar programs that cost significant amounts of money. All right, so showed you a little bit about editing photos. There's also some third-party tools, Canva or Paint 3D. These offer additional levels of customization or editing for photos. The built-in Windows Photo app, like I just showed you cropping, adjusting brightness, etc. Same thing for Google Photos. For most people, though, those particular apps will be more than fine. We probably, I bet the SCTC actually has. Do we have a Photoshop class?
I don't think we do anymore.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Adobe.
Yeah, I was just curious. Anyway, once you move into those application arenas, you get way more involved with what you can do and way more complex with how you use them. And Adobe has been a centerpiece on Apple computers from way back, ever since, well, I don't know if they were on the Apple II, but they certainly were on the Mac. Anyway, so backing up photos, we've discussed that ad nauseum. You have numerous places where you can Yes, Barb just asked the question. So Barb, do you know which app you want me to use? The Google Photos or the Microsoft tool? Google Photos, okay. All right, so you wanted to see how we getting lighting and cropping, okay. So lighting is here for filters.
But I wanted to know how to get into this section.
Oh, okay.
Where's the button to get into this?
All right. So let me discard this real quick. It's a good question. All right. So here I am starting from the actual view of photos.
Okay,
You click on the photo itself, and then there's edit here. These the little lines up here. So this is the edit. This
okay.
you can zoom in. Everything else is pretty basic, but this is the edit mechanism right here. So it looks like 3 switches that you can drag up at the top. Do you see that?
Yeah, I think when I have tried that, it tells me I need to buy something. I've never seen this free version.
That's really interesting. I've not seen that myself.
Okay, I will try this, and maybe I was going into another room somewhere.
It may
So,
have been
yeah,
a different app. Yeah.
This is what I wanted to see. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Let's drag that over here. All right. Again, talked about backups in a fair amount of detail. So generally speaking, it's hard to tell you how to declutter your own house, as it were. What I wind up by doing with our clients is to try to find out how they think and how they would approach organizing their files, besides recommending a default layout. As we've already discussed, and Bob mentioned it earlier as well, and that is that some things are confusing with organizing photos within the Windows default system folder structure, where they have a default folder called documents, where they decided that they knew all the things you needed. And so there's a music, there's photos, etc. And you can tell by my own presentation that that's not the way I necessarily work for myself. And a lot of people need to have an approach that works for them. And the system is very flexible. A Windows system, a Mac, even your phone. Again, the phone tends to be even more particular about where it puts things by default, but you can actually alter where things wind up by landing on your phone. That gets a little more involved. So it's better, kind of, in my opinion, to let the phone put things where it's going to put things, and then use the tools that I showed you whether it be a cable connection, whether it be using OneDrive on your phone or using Google Drive on your phone or Google Photos to move things where they make the most sense to you. Now, one of the organization techniques that I haven't actually gone over yet in Google Photos is actually the concept of albums or collections. So what I've done here is just for our session here is I created an album, and when you move images to an album with Google Photos, it doesn't actually move them. It creates a link that displays the images in the album. So in this case, what I had done is I yeah, here you can see what I marked all these for a day, or you can mark them selectively. And then there is a plus here to add or create new. And you can create a shared album, which we do with my family. And that's where we share an album with all the kids and the like. And so let me show you that. And then you can pick who you're sharing with. And this would be generally anybody that actually has a Google account that you've interacted with. And you can see I have a number of them. And given a meaningful name. And then you can share the album then with your contacts and the like. And it gives you a number of different mechanisms. Here, this will search through my contacts in this case. But you can also create a link and then email that link or message that link to the people that you want to share it with, and they will be able to see the photos in that album. There's also, the photo location is turned on by default. If you don't want to know the people that you've shared this with, where the photo was taken, which I've kind of given it away here by saying it was Los Alamos. But the long and short of it is, if you don't want to share location information for the photos, you would actually turn this off. And I know a lot of folks that do want to avoid sharing location information, other images out. It's a security thing, and I highly recommend that you carefully share not only photos, but anything you would share with somebody else, that you would take care in number one, who you share it with, and number two, what information is provided in the file or in the photo. And location can be a security issue. The other thing that you can do with photos is actually create, well, let me hang on a second before I get there. So we kind of talked about photo and file decluttering. That's that's one that I'd like to work usually with people with to figure out what works for them, like I've already mentioned. Uh, there's a number of scams related to photo storage. Um, be very careful when receiving an email claiming that somebody shared a photo album with you. If you don't know who it is, do not click any links. And this has been an ongoing issue for a number of folks that I've worked with through the SCTC, where they have received an email. It looked like it was from somebody they knew, but they had changed the characters in the email address slightly and basically gave access, and grabbed information off their machine. So it's a point of attack that people make, that I should say bad actors make, and you need to be really careful, both in text, well, in any messaging or email or otherwise that you might receive. Always be suspicious first, and look in detail at where things are coming from. And in general, I would say it's a pretty good practice not to click on links. I know we have a security, um, some security presentations, but that's one. I think you can avoid a lot of problems if you never click a link in an email. If it's a link of something, for instance, like PayPal or similar, then instead of clicking the link, go to your PayPal account directly and log in, and you can avoid a lot of problems. Okay, one of the things that I've done in sharing photos is actually printing photos. And I've listed Walmart and Walgreens. I believe even Staples does this, but I haven't looked recently. But I actually used Walmart. My dad was not, did not actually have a computer at home. So what I would do is I would upload images to Walmart's online photo printing and actually have them printed at the Walmart store where he worked or where he lived. He both worked and then after he was retired. And I'd send pictures of the kids to him there. Walgreens, you can do a very similar thing. They have a really nice photo printer in most Walgreens that you can take a USB key using similar mechanisms I've shown you, is copying your images off and onto a USB key as opposed to onto your Windows machine, and taking that in. Or you can actually, in this Walgreens here, you can actually bring your phone in and connect it and select images and print them that way. These are really nice ways, and it's another way of backing up your photos, right? Now you have actual photos like that you can add to your photo albums, etc. All right. This is one of the things that was asked last time I gave a class on using using Google Photos. This is a little broader based, but you can create a slideshow in Windows very easily. And the time you really want a slideshow in Windows typically is when your machine times out and is showing the screensaver, as it were. And there is a photo screensaver, and I've put up a quickie of the screensaver settings, and I've selected photos here. And in fact, let's get you a live view of that. All right, so currently I have a 3D text screensaver, but what you can do is you can select the photos screensaver and your timing on how soon you want the screensaver to kick in and the like is completely up to you, but that's what you would, how you set that up is wait 30 minutes is my default here. And then what you can do with settings for photos here as a screensaver is browse a directory, and I have it set up for pictures right now, where it will then pull the images for the slideshow from there and shuffle, if you so desire, the pictures. And you can create, you can pick any location in terms of pictures, save it, and there's no pictures here, as you can see. So you basically it, and then it will, let me pick one that makes sense here. And then it'll actually give you an example of the actual slideshow taking place right here. You can do a preview, but that would blank out my screen here, so I'm not gonna do that. But it'll give you a look with your full screen screensaver actually up and operating. And then the one of the questions I had was how do you do it on your phone? There is you can create an album in your classic gallery app, which let me show you that. So this is my gallery app. It's for Google Photos to do a slideshow. You can do a temporary slideshow, but it doesn't give you a running slideshow in Google Photos. So what I've used on, I've seen it work on LG phones, Motorola, Samsung. I haven't done it on the Pixel, but that's going to be limited to Google Photos in that case. You can actually create and then start a slideshow, and it will run through this on your phone. And you can have the slideshow run when your lock screen is running. And folks, I think I've come to the end and open for questions. You're on mute, guy. I see you talking, Kelly. There he is.
Yeah. One of the problems that people have is getting multiple copies of photographs like you talked about.
Yes.
And if you take your cell phone and move all your photographs onto your computer, but then don't erase them off your phone, and you go back and at some point you download everything a second or third or fourth time, you end up with multiple copies of photographs. And the one thing that I'm wondering is if you have these multiple copies, if there's a program or software that allows you to eliminate duplicates and make comparisons with photographs that are really close together as far as imagery.
That's a really good question. So there is, as far as naming goes, one of the declutter mechanisms I will use is I'll go, well, I have more than one of this, and I'll actually use Windows Explorer, the File Explorer, to search out all similar named files. But in terms of what you're talking about, that's another step beyond that. And I don't have a recommendation right now for that. That's something for the next class, I think. That's a really good investigative thing, I think.
Thank you.
Well, Tim, do you have a TLDR? Too long, didn't read?
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I have
sorry,
a lot of additional, in fact, and I did not add it to the presentation yet, but I will add a bunch of links that provide the TLDR effectively for this.
I think one of the points that Daryl hit upon was if you're using a cloud service, don't plug your phone into your computer and vice versa, because it just creates duplicates.
It does. And I've seen people that are using they're using Dropbox and OneDrive,
Oh my.
and they have an external drive, and it's duplicated across all of them. And they never know exactly where they're sharing or they're saving something. So yeah, that's a really
Stick with it. And pick one and stick with it, right?
yeah, I think some of this is just things that, well, so in the case of Dropbox, the one client, they had to use Dropbox for work, and then they kind of expanded their use into it. But it was kind of the oldest guy in the mix, except for what was on their system. Then they got a new PC, and OneDrive is the default on a new PC
Right.
for storage of everything. As it turns out, it's not on the PC, and in this case, this person backed up their whole PC, and you and I talked about this a little bit before. Their whole PC was backed up onto OneDrive, and they were paying the extra money for it, and then they were still saving things on Dropbox. And then they decided they weren't secure enough, and they saved the whole PC off on the external drive. And they never knew exactly which one was in play. It's because default saving locations will change over time, depending on how you save files and the like, and what app you're using and the like.
Yeah, especially if you're using OneDrive. OneDrive confuses me where it stores things. I don't know why.
Yeah. And the thing is when you look at the representation on the system, it's not self-consistent in and of itself. There are times where OneDrive will look like it's local, and you have to redo it a couple of times, and then you go, oh, that is OneDrive. And in this case, with her, I said, okay, well, we're going to go to Dropbox. We're going to turn off automatic backup of your system to Dropbox. We're going to look at what you have. We're going to limit what OneDrive can back up of your system. So I agree. It's one or the other, it's unless you want to have, in this particular case, it was 120 gigabytes of storage on OneDrive, and she was getting told she was running out of room. Well, she thought she was taking things off from her local system, but she actually had things off from OneDrive going back onto the system in a different place. So she was using up like twice the storage.
Yeah. Wow.
And it is confusing. It's not it was an interesting situation. It's not that it can happen pretty easily if you're not watching really closely. So,
Tim, Tim, as we wrap up, you want to stop sharing for a sec?
yeah. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, I will be taking the slides and putting them on our website. We have a tab for Android material, so I'll be posting the slides that you've seen on our website. I'll also be saving the recording of the session to our YouTube channel, so if you want to go back and review it. So, did we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Good job, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
I will update the slides.
Yeah, you went
Okay.
through a really complicated process, I guess, whatever you call it. It's a really complicated situation. So, way to cover all the bases.
Well,
And I
mo-
I
most
know
of them, but you
Bobski's-
guys keep coming up with new ones, which is
I know.
we'll continue to extend the discussion, I suppose.
I think further comment on that multiple drive storage locations, the biggest problem is also it'll get accidental deletions. So pick one and get good with it is pretty good advice.
It is.
All right, I'm going to hit the end button. Thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody coming.
Well, friends, that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed this video today. Hey, before you go, if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to know when the latest SCTC video comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.